Welcome, everybody, back here at Veil of Sound. It's the end of January, close to the beginning of February. I think it's even February when we're releasing this. And I'm very, very happy to do it because in a few days, this young gentleman here on my side will be re-releasing one of his, I would say, very, very important records. I'm very happy to have Chris Spencer from Unsane here on the show once again. So, Chris, thanks for joining.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thanks for doing it.
You and your band will be re-releasing Occupational Hazard in a couple of days. This time, if I understood it correctly, through your own label, through your own outlet, right?
Yeah, through Lamb Unlimited. Yeah. During the pandemic, my friend and manager and booking agent, Todd, got all the rights back to pretty much everything. Total Destruction we did not get, but we got just about every other record. So I've got all the rights back, and he set up a deal with Virtual Label, which is takes care of most of the business, but then I supply extra crap that I have in the vault back there, and sort of add bonus material, and have Andrew Schneider, who's done many of our records, have him remaster it, which helps a lot because the recordings and technology during that period of time in the 90s, it was obviously getting better than it had been during the 80s and stuff, but now things are much better. You can really sort of enhance the sound and make it more powerful. So we remaster and then release it on Lamb Unlimited. We did a record that never came out before the first record. And then the first record, and then we were trying to go chronologically, but had some issues. BBC started to sort of give us our stuff back for the Peel sessions, but then flaked out and just didn't answer emails at one point. And then we did not get Total Destruction. So we were going to do it chronologically, but hit some roadblocks. So we just went with, I really wanted to do Occupational Hazard. So we just jumped right to that after the first record.
If anybody wants to find out which first record that never got released Chris was talking about, it's Improvised Visions, and it was released Munitions. And it was released 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. And that was the first time we had the pleasure of talking to Chris. So if you want to find out something more about that record, we'll put it into the links beneath this interview. A question, and you don't have to answer, but you can just nod or shake your head. Let me guess. The problem with Total Destruction is that it was released on Atlantic as well, right?
That is correct. You are correct. They snuck it in. There was like a in perpetuity clause in there, and it's kind of weird. Matador has reissued it because it was on Atlantic, but it was because it was Matador, the label we were on, got bought out by Atlantic during the whole Nirvana frenzy. They were just buying all these indie bands and labels and trying everything
because everybody sounded like Nirvana.
Well, they were looking for that. That's what they were looking for.
Yeah, exactly. That is what we're looking
for. We definitely do not sound like Nirvana,
I mean, as much as I like Nirvana, and I have to say I grew up with that, but
which I like Nirvana as well.
Yeah, and but I would even go that far and would say nobody sounded like Nirvana because
that is correct.
Just hard to beat. And so you are working your way through your catalog, more or less, because of course
that kind of we may skip around. There's some records like Blood Run I would like to just remix, but it's going to be hard to find the original tapes. But I could give that a shot. We'll see. Maybe just remix and remaster that one, but something like This Queen, which Andrew recorded, I think that's maybe our best sounding record, really. In terms
it has a certain clarity and crunch at the same time. That's true.
Exactly. So that one would be maybe just slightly tweaked, and it's Andrew, the guy who recorded it, doing it. So maybe he could find something to improve on, which might be a little difficult, actually.
But by the way, when we're talking about our shared love for Nirvana. I mean, like you got a title on Occupational Hazard, which just smells like rain. Is that a little hint to Cobain and everything, or is it just
no, not at all? Like? No, that's actually a reference to Taxi Driver.
Ooh.
Someday a real rain will come, you know.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, and you know, in the air when you can smell the rain's coming, you know, yeah, that's what that's about.
Yeah, I think that's a better rain metaphor than I like the smell of napalm in the morning. Yeah, definitely. Taxi Driver's definitely a movie that I would rather quote than Apocalypse Now. Something struck me about the record when I looked it up and I looked a little bit at who was involved. It's a little bit like a Who Is Who of 90s alternative music. But I have to ask one thing before we get into the very personal details of a record. I mean, normally a record has a producer or two. In the case of Occupational Hazard, at least officially, it had two executive producers and two guys who recorded it. Executive producers were Matt and Bill from Relapse Record. Was that just something that they wrote into the notes, or is that something that they were really?
That was just their. I mean, they're the label. They, I guess, sort of executively produced the whole thing. But realistically, it was Billy Anderson initially recorded it over in Brooklyn, Power Street, and then he went back to San Francisco and sent us a couple of mixes, and we were kind of like, I don't know, you know. And my friend Dave Sardi had done some stuff with Slayer, I think, or something. You know, I was hanging out with him, and I just asked him if he could help us out and give us some, you know, the bigger sound. Which it's a little weird to record it so low tech and then ask the guy to make it high tech, you know. But he had a great studio in Midtown, and he really worked some magic on that one.
So yeah, I read that space was also one of the reasons why you asked him again, because I read somewhere that the space itself seemed so modern and so cool that you said, like, okay, we need to make use of that.
Wait, you mean talking about in the mix?
I'm talking about Sardi, you know, like when we had the studio and everything. And was that something that at that time was important for Unsane?
Wait, what?
Finding a good location, finding the right location for the record?
I mean, like I said, it was recorded in, I can't remember the name of that studio on Power Street in Brooklyn, but it was kind of a cheap studio. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of low tech, although we were totally into recording on tape. And, you know, at the time that was sort of generally the MO. So we kind of, you know, we recorded it in that spot in Brooklyn. God damn it. Sorry, I can't remember that. But then Dave, when he mixed it, brought it to a bigger studio, and he was really cool. He knew, he had a lot of tricks, you know, in terms of making things sound better than maybe the initial recording had been. It was really kind of cool. He brought out some stuff and really worked it really hard to make it sound better.
Yeah, I mean, like I can see what you mean with. I just think about better. You know, it's always a question. A lot of people would probably say like, "Oh, we would have loved the lo-fi sound," but I know what you mean. I think you know, with Unsane,
a musty sounding record that's just compressed mush, or do you want some clarity? You know.
Yeah, and I also think that for a band like Unsane, a good measure of clarity is very, very important.
It is, because a lot of times I like to just record everybody in the same room, and there's a certain amount of bleed, and you know, you really need to sort of reinforce the separation after the fact, which is hard. You know, that's a trick. That's another trick. You know, I think it's better for the live performance on the record to all be in the same room and not just be overdubbing shit by yourself. You know. But and I've always thought that. But again, you need to fix it up a little bit after and do what you can initially. You can do what you can to sort of get some separation, but have that live performance. So
That also means when we're talking about recording Unsane tracks and especially doing it in a live performance kind of way, that means that the setup of all the recording probably takes a little bit of time, right?
yeah, it does. And there were some little problems. There was like something that Billy had not realized. I think there was a problem with the top snare mic, for example. Mm-hmm. That this top snare mic is the real attack. The bottom is the, So then that was another issue where Dave, went in and did a little first aid on the recording. So, but yes, initially you really need to do that. That's like an old, I learned that early on when we did Sub Pop single, Vandal X and Street Sweeper. And we crashed in Steve Albini's basement when his studio was like just his house. And we just stayed with him and went out the night before. And Charlie, our drummer, got all fucked up with the Urge Overkill guys. And we all just woke up on the floor of a space. And Steve really, he was trying to teach Charlie how to tune your drum to the shell. He was really into the sort of pre-set, the setup work to get a really separate, good recording out of something. Charlie was a little oblivious at that point. He was sort of hungover, I think. But it was sort of the setup was everything, and mic placement. That's a big, that's what made Steve Albini so kind of great is really that initial recording setup,
Yeah, it's also the way that, that also goes into what Albini said of himself. As far as I remember, he never spoke about himself as a producer, but more as an engineer. And that just totally goes with that.
Yeah.
So let's make it clear. So you had your recordings, you had it from Billy, and then you went with Dave to pump it up a little bit. Yeah. What is interesting about the record, of course, it is basically one of the last records by Unsane that was more or less written on tour, right?
Yes.
In the sense that at that point you were still a very, very heavily touring band.
Yeah. Over 300 shows a year at that point. So there wasn't much time to write shit outside of tour. There was some, and there was actually the demo, which is included in this reissue. We did a demo at AmRep, Amphetamine Reptile, Tom Hazelmeyer's label. Because they had the studio in the basement and we could kind of hang out there. They were friends of ours. We could sort of live there, so to speak, in the middle of Minneapolis in winter and really focus on what we were doing. So we did, the demo is included on, it's a digital download that comes, adjacent to the vinyl on this reissue. So you can really hear initially what we were doing at AmRep and then went to Relapse. So.
And now let's think about that. So you wrote the thing on the road.
Well, we had like 6 songs. I think it was 5 or 6 that we did with AmRep, and then that we not for the label, but just in their studio. Just use that. They're friends. We were just hanging out, writing shit. So that was sort of the initial, 6 songs, something like that. That spawned the rest. That were. A lot were written on tour and off tour, or whatever, So like we always had home recording stuff, as well.
So those 6 tracks are basically were they like the skeleton for you? Like you knew, okay, that is where we are going. Yeah, that is what we want to do.
Exactly.
And then we have to talk about probably one of the worst moments that happened to you on tour. And I think that's also one of the reasons why Occupational Hazard is such a watershed record for Unsane. You were attacked in Vienna.
Yeah, we had actually wrapped up the entire record. And we had months until it came out, and Relapse asked me to go to Vienna and also other spots in Germany to do promotion and just kind of talk to, do interviews and stuff like that. And then I went into a bar. My girlfriend was there at the time, and her husband, her boyfriend, her brother. And we were all hanging out, and then I was going back to the hotel, and she was going back to her brother's, her parents' place. And I walked out, and I found out later that I was attacked because there had been a lot of friction between American military guys who had been there and sort of these Eastern European gang guys who had hung out at that club, which I had no idea about any of this. But I walk out of the club, and I'm walking down this like hedge area to leave in this park. And a guy goes, "Hey," I turn, I'm like, "What?" Somebody comes up from behind me and hits me in the back of the neck with something very hard. As I'm going down, I hit the ground. I see like 4 or 5 guys coming out of the bushes who proceed to kick me in the head and body for a long time. Woke up in a hospital covered in blood. The lip was ripped down to here, eyes swollen shut, there's blood everywhere. I woke up. I was like, holy shit, what the fuck? Left the hospital because I was out in a gurney out in the hallway. Got up, went to go back to a hotel and wash off the blood. Got in the shower, realized I was in serious pain in my midsection, my stomach, abdominal cavity. So I went back to the hospital, and they were like, "Where did you go? You were here for surgery. You have internal bleeding." Very long story short, or as short as possible, they cut me open from sternum to pelvic bone, went through all my internal organs, couldn't really find the bleeding until it took them a long time, apparently. They found it in my small intestine, cut out a piece, put all my organs back in, put my everything back in, which is very strange. It feels weird afterwards once you wake up and realize your whole internal structure is different. But then I had to leave. I was leaving on tour like a few weeks later. So went back to New York, tried to heal up as much as I could, had kind of a fly-by-night doctor take out the staples. I had this Velcro girdle holding me together, holding my midsection together with a giant scar running, sternum to pelvic bone. And proceeded to tour for 10 months with, for the first couple 2 or 3 months was really rough. I had to wear that girdle, and there would be blood inside it after we played, and I'd just go lie on the floor of the van. Very painful. So yeah, made it through. Eventually, at the end, we went to Australia, and the tour manager took us to this tea tree oil lake, where I went swimming, and finally the itching and pain stopped. Like the tea tree oil really helped the wound. And so towards the end of that 10-month jaunt, I suddenly started feeling much better. So, I made it through, healed up, everything's fine. But I'm looking forward to playing that stuff live now, not being in extreme pain the entire time.
We'll come to that in a moment, but I hope you don't mind me asking. That was the first time that there was a bigger time lapse between 2 Unsane records. I mean, apart from the 10-month touring cycle, the record was released in 1998, and the next one, Blood Run, came out in 2005. Was there something about that incident that also kept you from making music?
I wouldn't say it kept me from making music, but after all that, man, I needed a break. I needed at the time I'd spoken to my grandfather about it. He was like, you should have just canceled touring, healed up. You could have been right back in it, but I was a little traumatized after that whole thing, and was kind of like, I kind of want to get back to a quiet life, not my quiet life.
Yeah.
Try to, just after something like that, you're traumatized. You need a little mental break, from everything, as well as a physical break. So yeah, there was a hiatus, so to speak. But then down the road, you start going like, what the hell? I loved what I do, and I liked my quiet life, but at the same time, I like playing music too. So let's get back to it.
Yeah, and then there came a period again of very high productivity. You released several records with Unsane. Simultaneously, you had another band,
Yeah,
Salon, that
yeah.
I
Oh
want to
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about in a
That was
moment.
actually later. That was like 2009. But
Exactly, and
but yeah, I did Cutthroats for a
yeah,
while during the break. I was out in San Francisco, hanging out with my good friend Will Carroll, who now plays in a band called Death Angel. He's the drummer for them, which is kind of great. He's doing really well in this giant metal scene. Um, but yeah, just kind of hung with my friends and really focused on and having fun, hanging with your friends and playing music, and not the grind of touring. I kind of felt I didn't kind of I really felt early on I didn't want to be some rock type. I to me that's really unappealing. I think most people who achieve fame become really miserable because they think that getting there is going to bring all this resolution to your life and you'll
yeah,
get what you really
mhm.
want. But no, man, it's fucking it's kind of bullshit. There's a lack of depth to your existence. I feel, you're just day, going out meeting all so many different things where you're not really focused. You don't have a girl, you don't have a dog, you don't, you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
more simple things in life are really lacking. And the fame and success is not, I mean, you just look at people who have achieved something like that, Kurt Cobain. Sorry to come
yeah,
back to that.
yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
he seemed pretty miserable with the whole thing. Like, what the
Although, yes, although all the things that he had, yes, definitely, because I think, let's be honest, one of the driving forces for every kind of musician is first of all the love for music. And it's a great thing that you can have that love for music, but of course, once you become a musician and once you can start making a living from it, then it turns into a job. And we all know that
That
a
is
job,
exactly what I was talking about. Like
yeah, yeah,
early
yeah,
on, I told the guys in the band, like, hey, when this becomes a job, I fucking quit.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I I love what I do. I really do like love it. But when it becomes just them beating you over the head with the thing that you love, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you just overdone. It's just too much. It's kind of like, I mean, it took me a while to sort of come to grips with that. You're doing like 300 shows a year, 318, 320 a year. Uh, you need a life. You
yeah,
can't just, playing music is awesome, but then you have no other life outside of that. It's
yeah,
kind of it's a little much. It becomes a little, I don't know, just punishing, and it's something that you love that is punishing you.
yeah, yeah,
So
definitely is.
as I think emotionally, intellectually, you think that this thing is going to be, you can do it all the time and it's going to be so great. But the reality is it just kicks your ass, and you're missing out on a lot of aspects of life that are really rewarding, and healthy. I think you need those things. You got to take time to yourself and not just be out all the time.
Would you also agree that, of course, at one point you're lacking inspiration, you're lacking something to write about?
I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know about that. I really don't, because I that's kind of one of the things that I'm able to do early
Hmm.
on, like when I was in high school or something. You get around a bunch of musicians, and you're like, oh, let's jam, and everybody
Hmm.
kind of looks at each other, and somebody goes like, oh, okay, what do we play? You know what I mean? And then
Yeah,
I would be like, oh, okay, try this, and just make some
yeah,
shit up. Doesn't matter if it's good or not, just make something up, and it starts the ball rolling.
yeah,
From there, everybody can figure shit out. So I've sort of in my life been able to do that on a fairly consistent level. I think a lot of it is editing later. You know what I mean? You can be like, that kind of sucks. So, let's trash that. But then maybe aspects of it are really cool and usable. So I don't think, I mean, I realize with a lot of bands that may be the case. They get to this sort of level where they lack the conviction or the sincerity or the meaningfulness or whatever. I kind of writing with Unsane, a lot of it has been about conviction. It's been about singing about real shit and not just making up some dumbass crap to fucking, to fill the quota. It's more about real shit. So whatever.
That is something that I loved about Unsane for all time. Whenever I started listening to you like 30 years ago, and I found a quote that I loved because it described something that I always felt about Unsane. Not quote unquote, not verbally, but basically I found a quote where it said like, while other bands have to try to pose as if they've gone through hard times, hard shit, and had to learn street knowledge, these guys seem to be the real deal. Would you take that as a compliment if somebody said that or says that about you?
Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't? I mean, if that's the kind of music you want to do, you know what I mean? If you want to do this extreme fucking real shit, then and I do realize there are bands, who are not from the Lower East Side of Manhattan, in the late '80s. There are other bands who would love to have have that. I don't know. To me, I can't really. I play with a lot of bands where people just want to be rock stars, and I have no fucking interest in that shit at all. I just do what I do because I love what I do. I love the expression. I love the catharsis of playing a show and sweating your ass off and beating yourself up doing it. I just love what this niche I've been able to create throughout over the years, so it's a different thing. I didn't think when we first started stuff, I couldn't believe that people actually liked what we did, honestly. But then I realized like there are a lot of other people out there who feel similar, have empathy for what I'm doing, and can relate, which, I thought it was just not something people could relate to. But then you realize like, wow, man, people actually, really kind of feel that way.
Yeah. And especially because a lot of music that you have written over the last couple of decades is it just nearly automatically creates a certain kind of catharsis. It's like,
oh yeah,
you can get a lot of shit out of your system because basically you're beaten up. Or I just read up this quote by Blake Butler from AllMusic from back in the day when you released Occupational. He says, listening to these guys is like getting hit by a semi-truck, kicked in the teeth, thrown down 3 flights of stairs all at once.
Wow.
It is some kind of that. But the thing that he didn't write, and I think that it's lacking in his quote or that it's lacking in his ideas, well, yes, you are beaten, you are kicked, but in the end, you just look up, you're smiling and say, thank you, let's do it once again.
Yeah. Well,
you've just said it,
it's not, it might be a bit nihilistic, but I don't think it's completely without hope.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's sort of a, come on, man, we can fucking get through this,
Together, right? I think that's also something about it. You on the stage and we in front of the stage, we get through all of that shit together.
Yeah, I've had quite a few people over the years, guys. People tell me like, you got me through fucking some of the roughest shit in my life, which I mean, that's really flattering to me. I'm like, holy shit, I'm glad I could be able to do that for somebody. Just doing my own thing. So whatever.
Yeah, it's probably also something that you never imagined you would be able to do with that kind of music, right?
No, yeah, not at all. Yeah, no, very cool.
Something about Occupational Hazard that always struck me. I don't know why, but to me, it is your record that is closest to hardcore.
Oh, huh.
I don't know why, but to me, Occupational is the one that sounds closest to hardcore. Has that ever been a music that you liked?
What do you mean?
Hardcore music.
Oh, of like New York hardcore?
I mean, like,
I don't know, because that's such a broad generalization.
yes,
there's a lot of different aspects to that, you know.
Also, that's why I did try to stay away from New York hardcore, because in that term, a lot of people equally measure Biohazard and Sig of It All, which have nothing to do with each other.
Or like Agnostic Front or Murphy's Law, or, you know,
yeah.
It's, I mean, I've seen all those bands and we toured with Biohazard, you know what I mean? But we are totally different. We're like a totally different thing. We're like, you know, cab driving art students, you know what I mean? We're not like guys from fucking Queens, you know.
Yeah, and you also didn't marry porn stars.
Yeah, you know, whatever. You know,
but so you say, like, you listened to hardcore, but it's not a driving influence in Unsane.
No,
right?
Not at all. No, but I definitely heard it, saw it live, you know, it was surrounded by it from very early on, from the beginning, basically. Because at CBs, we used to hang out at CBs all the time, CBGBs.
Yeah.
And there was always the Sunday matinee, you know, where, you know, it was cool. There was some cool shit. There was a good energy to it, you know, but at the same time, it was not really the type of music that I was that into. I mean, I like shit like Killdozer, you know, or Big Black early on, you know, that kind of, or Butthole Surfers, stuff like that. Something a little more extravagant, you know. You know.
Who also played CBGBs, but who were not the regular thing there.
When they were touring. Yeah. I saw Big Black and at different times, Big Black and the Butthole Surfers there. And Big Black had their drum machine break. And their one of their crew guys, one of the guys who lived in the van with them, played drums for Kerosene, you know. And it was pretty cool. It was really good. Both shows were awesome. I mean, the Butthole Surfers during the early shit, like Another Man's Sack period of time, Cherub, and, you know, that shit was insane live. It was just incredible, really cool. Anyway, I digress.
No, that's totally fine. Something about the record the record cover is also interesting, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's one of the New York bridges that we see in the background, right?
Yeah, that's underneath the Manhattan Bridge. Yeah, that's on the east side, on the East River. And me and James Rexroad, the guy who took that photo, I think he worked for like the Post and the New York Times, and young guy, very young at the time, you know, my age or whatever. He did a lot of the New York papers and shit like that. Also did, I think, some shit for like Sports Illustrated or something. Very, you know, great photographer, but really cool guy, and really liked Unsane. So we had this thing that's called a blood run, where we would scout a spot and then go out and hit it with cow's blood and set up a situation. Then he would take the photos, but it was all very guerrilla, because during the Occupational Hazard one, the cops actually showed up and there's blood everywhere, you know, and you're like, you want to run, but you don't. So we had to deal with them. We told them we were like NYU students, you know, doing a thing. And they're like, well, you know, you have to have permits and all this shit. We're like, oh, we're so sorry. We're just dumb students, you know. And those were really fun, man. The blood runs were really fun, because it would be like me and James and like 2 or 3 other people. And then we go in, and I go in with rubber gloves and just fucking hose the place down with blood. Have a friend, I'll lie down, just set up a situation. Like, some are real. Scattered Smothered Cover is a real one. The first album's real.
Yeah.
But then some are completely made by us in maybe a really cool piece of architecture in New York, or like scattered under a really cool, with a really cool photo underneath the Manhattan Bridge, you know, of the Post of the you know, the east side of the FDR or whatever, you know. It was just cool shit. We would just scope spots and be like, okay, let's do a blood run here and see what we get. You know, you didn't always get cool shit, but a lot of times we did, because it was, you know, we knew kind of how to approach it. So
And at the same time, it gave Unsane something that I don't want to say corporate identity, but an Unsane record was always recognizable at first. The lettering, the position of the lettering, the blood. That was a distinct decision, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. From the beginning. Yeah, we were like Pete, our first bass player. Me and him, but he taught me a lot of shit about doing prosthetic effects. We were like huge gore hounds. We just loved like 80s horror and gore and stuff. And I helped him. We did something for Richard Kern. I don't know if you know who that is, but underground filmmaker in New York. We were just like, excuse me, gorehound kids who lived in the inner, in lower Manhattan. So the combo, when we were told, like, when we first got on Matador, it was like, we're going to do our own fucking record covers. We're not handing this over to some art guy at Matador. Yeah. We're going to do our own shit.
We don't want an NYU student doing it.
Well, I was an NYU student, so so there you go. There you got one. But it was just really an ethos that we had from the beginning. Like, this is going to be what we're into, and like playing music. It's about fun and expression and doing shit we think is cool, like what we would like to see on our record cover. We don't want to have be approving someone else's art so much. There are exceptions to that rule. The people like Frank Kozig, or what I mean. There are different people who've done some shit for us where I was like, okay, you can take that one.
If Kozig does something for you, then you take it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. He's really cool, or was really cool, awesome guy. But but generally, the blood run is fun. Going out in the freezing cold with a shit ton of blood and a couple of photographers and doing. It's fun shit. It's an aspect of being in a band that most bands don't have.
Yeah, they don't think about, right? By the way, if you say that you were and probably are still a huge gore and horror fan, then today must be Halloween, Christmas, and your birthday at the same time, because for the first time ever, a horror movie has been nominated for, I don't know, I think 16 times at the Oscars. Wait, Sinners, the Ryan Coogler movie.
Yeah, I just
been nominated 16 times.
But it's kind of a silly movie with the dancing and the,
I mean, like, otherwise it wouldn't get 60 nominations. Right?
I guess.
If it was a real gore movie, then.
I mean, as a gorehound, the mainstream shit is not really the usual, good stuff, So.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see that horror has re-entered Hollywood.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Which it kind of, I think thematically, it's hard to find something new, really. Yeah. Like, the early stuff, there were kind of new things you could do, and now, it's all about as a virus or a zombie or, there were films like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. You don't see that kind of shit anymore, so like you feel like you just can't wash it off afterwards. You know what I mean? You almost feel shitty about watching it,
Yeah, and you
real 80s thing,
and it makes your blood pump faster.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Anyway. So let's get to the live aspect of Occupational Hazard. You've played with Human Impact at Roadburn last year, and you're back again, not even 12 months later, and now you will be performing Occupational Hazard from beginning to end. Are there tracks that you had to relearn for the live performance?
Yeah, there are tracks. I mean, refamiliarize is really the key. I mean, I already know them pretty much. It's not, to me, yes, but yes, I had to go through them over a few more times. I've been doing it the past couple of months. And obviously we haven't done that entire record, and there are probably, I think, 5 or 6 that we never really played live. So, it's pretty cool, man. It's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to doing it. Obviously, it's not just going to be the record. We're going to do some other stuff too. But due to time limitations, we'll see how much we can sneak in there.
Yeah, I mean, like Occupational Hazard is definitely a good record to do it because it's not even 40 minutes long.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's 39 or something. But then we also add the single that was done in that same time period, No Soul.
That was done for Kozik's Van Ruin, right?
Yeah, for the Kozik thing. So that's on there too. Um, yeah, we'll see. We can add, I'm not sure what our time slot is, but right now, like with the guys, I've set up like a 36 song set list. So there's a lot more to it than just Occupational Hazard. There's a lot of stuff I'm running through to refamiliarize. And like, for example, in Bologna at the Freak Out Club, it's a really small club. And we know the guys, I've played there forever from the beginning, really. And the guys are really cool, run the place. But the initial show sold out pretty quick. It's not a big room, blah, blah, blah. It's tiny. So they were like, hey, man, will you do two sets in one night? It's going to be a real trials of life type situation. But it's going to be cool to do, obviously both will focus on Occupational Hazard, but there will be, you get to do a second set that's different material, which will be fun. I've always thought, sorry, the dog is making noise here.
No problem.
I've always really, I always kind of wanted to not just do the locked in set. Like one time it was my birthday. We were in Hamilton, Ontario or something, somewhere, not a big place or anything really. But it was my birthday and the guy's like, okay, Chris, you can finally do it. Just call it as you see it. You could just call out a song. We'll do that one. Call out another one. Because the guys would never let me just call out shit. Like I always wanted to just be like, okay, let's just fucking run through start with something, whatever we're feeling we want to do next. Let's do that. And we played for like an hour and a half when I got to call everything. So it was really fun and a great birthday gift. And that's the only time I've ever been able to do that. But anyway, so it's going to be good to do two sets and change shit up the second time around,
And will you then make sure that the second set doesn't feature a track from the first one?
No, you can't do it entirely. You got to do some shit, know. There's some
people want to hear Scrape.
Yeah, they want to hear Scrape, yeah, totally. There are a few of them,
By the way, is it true that
the tour is based around Occupational Hazard?
Yeah.
So we'll probably do a lot of songs from it. I mean, Committed, you have to do, so there will be, same songs in both sets, some of them, but then the other ones that you can switch around, we're gonna, So,
by the way, is it true that the Scrape video only costs $200?
$169, yeah. Well, I had a friend who.
That's probably the best. That is probably more or less the cheapest video that ever made it into more or less heavy rotation on MTV.
It was heavy rotation there for a while, 4 times a day. MTV sent me all the times. I'd see what they did on either side of it, and there was some where it was like, oh, Janet Jackson, right after Unsane, and I was like, oh my God.
Well, that is an Unsane thing.
We had sent them the video for Body Bomb before that. Matador had been trying, Atlantic. When Atlantic was really trying to push us, we were giving them shit that was unmarketable. Like a video, my friend Nats from Cop Shoot Cop was in the video, strapping on a homemade explosive and going down to the World Trade Center and blowing it up.
A few years too early.
Yeah. And shot by Richard Kern. You know what I mean? Like it was all me and my friends like doing cool shit that what we thought was really funny and cool. And they sent back an email saying, don't like the band, don't like the video. That was all that MTV said about that. And we were like, yes, we fucked it. We're fucking ourselves over. It's great. We will never be. That's being on Atlantic. I've never been into big labels, man. Never. I'd rather work with my friends. That's pretty consistent throughout my entire career is a love of just being with your friends, doing cool shit with what you think is cool. Maybe it's not that cool, but you get to hang with your friends and do shit that you enjoy.
Yeah. And again, it's not making music for sellout.
No, not at all. Of course not.
Yeah.
Fuck that, man. Yeah. Fuck that. I've never been into that. That to me is the ultimate compromise, oh, this has got to sell. I think I'll write a song like this. Fuck that, man. Yeah. Fuck that. Not into it.
Before I come to my next question, I first have to give out a shout out to one of my best friends in Canada, Jeff. Because when you were in Hamilton, Ontario, I'm very, very sure that Jeff was attending that show. I'll have to ask him tomorrow. Yeah. He goes to basically goes to all possible shows if it's a good one out in Ontario. But you've just said it. It was never about making music, never about being on a big label. It was about making music with your friends, being on cool labels. And you did that. When one looks at your resume, there are some amazing labels out there. You've done shit in the MREP studio. You've released through MREP. You've released through Man's Ruin. You even released through Reptilian Records.
Yeah. Chris X is awesome, man. He's a good friend. Yeah.
Was that maybe one of those dreams that you had when you started out with Unsane? Like one day we're gonna release something through label XYZ.
No. I mean, we didn't know. We just we don't sign for like we did with Relapse. It was a mistake. We didn't really want to sign for like 3 record deals and shit. We wanted to take it as it comes, man, and just, deal with the people that you like dealing with, and which if you keep moving, you keep doing cool shit. Like there was, for example, AT, Alternative Tentacles. One night, Jello is really funny and cool. I like hanging out with him a lot, and I would see him at shows and stuff. And one day he had asked me, he just was like, "Hey, Chris, what I'm saying? Want to do a record with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, of course." You got to be able to wing it. If you're locked into a big deal for 3 records, 4 records, you can't just say to your friend, "Yeah, let's do that." You know what I mean? You're contractually bound. So anyway, I mean, Mike Patton, the same thing with Ipecac. Yeah. I was hanging out. We were playing, I think, the Door Festival in Belgium or something. And I've known Buzz Osborne for a long time, guy from Melbourne. And we were all sitting around eating lunch backstage or something. And Mike was just like, "Oh, hey, would you do something with Ipecac?" I was, "Fuck yeah." It was good. And it turned out really great in that, Greg Workman, who also runs the label, and Mark Shapiro. I met some really cool people through that experience. And to this day, Man's Ruin, Human Impact is releasing shit through Ipecac. You know what I mean? And there is a possibility of maybe more Unsane shit through Ipecac. Ipecac's great.
Oh, that is what we want to hear, because that would have been my next question. We haven't had new Unsane music for now. It's 2026. The last Unsane shit came out 2017. So you hint that there might be some new Unsane.
Yeah, stuff? Maybe. I mean, we got to see. I've been doing a lot of shit, so we'll see. But yeah.
Would make an old man happy, and I know a lot of other old people out there as well. But talking about releasing new music, I have to ask that, because one of my favorite one-off bands that ever released a record here in Germany was Selam. You released one record through Exile on Mainstream.
Yeah.
Will we ever get... Oh, no, let's put it otherwise. You also worked with Steve Austin from Today Is the Day in UXO. If you could choose one of those 2 bands to release new music, which one would you rather revive?
I mean, Steve is a really good friend, Steve Austin. Me and him have been like brothers for fucking ever. And I loved working with him. That was really sort of the product of my girlfriend being from Maine, and Steve having a studio in Maine, and we went out there to like see her family and shit. And I was like, "Hey, I got a friend here. I would love to do some shit with him." Went to his house. We just kind of wrote shit and did shit quickly, which was a great experience. But Salon was really it was really about playing a lot. And there's this guy, Ari Benjamin Myers, awesome, great musician, also artist kind of. But yeah, I had met him when Unsane was on tour in Berlin, and he had mentioned to me that he had access to the original Einstürzende Neubauten studio. So, oh shit. So that was the impetus for doing that. Really was like there was these guys from this band, the Fluid or something. But anyway, two guys that I knew from Germany who were an awesome rhythm section. And then Ari is an amazing like classical composer and musician. So then the mixture of those three extra guys and the studio, and then I was living in Berlin for like a year and a half to do that. The whole experience was amazing. And we played a lot live. Like in the studio, we just kind of blocked it out for, I think, 14 days, 10 days, 14 days. And a lot of shit was written before, but then we bring it in and we just start experimenting with it. So that was really generally a majority of the experience was going into that, into the old studio, wanting to be in that studio. And also Nico from Oxbow, another good friend. So I would say I would love to do that again. That was really awesome. And I'm again, I don't know, I'm in a slightly better shape these days than I was at the time. So,
So, Chris, first of all, thanks for all the insight into that. But as usually, nobody leaves a Veil of Sound interview with the quickfire round at the end. This time I want to turn it around a little bit by not giving you two alternatives, but I'm going to ask you about your favorite. I also have only a few of them. Let's talk about the dark side of, or not means the dark side, the not so bright side of Occupational Hazard. Maybe the two parts that were a little problematic: Relapse Records and Billy Anderson. If you had to choose any Relapse record, which one would be your favorite, apart from anyone that you've been involved in?
Neurosis.
Which one?
I think it was Through Silver and Blood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because we toured with them on that one. They were a fucking monster band, man. We were on tour with them for 2.5 months in a bus with them. Like we lived with them. Those guys are my brothers. They at that time they were just incredible, great band.
Yeah, probably one of the minimum top 10, maybe top 5 live bands that I've ever seen. Yeah, I can understand that totally. Yeah. Now, of course, you chose Billy Anderson because he had made a lot of cool records that he produced and that he was involved in. Is there a record that he had his fingers in where you said, like, okay, that's definitely something that I love?
I think really like the sleep shit.
Yeah.
That was really kind of what steered me in that direction.
And now we come to the happy side of Occupational Hazard. Dave Sardy. And I'm not going to ask about the Bark Market stuff because I think that is just timeless and classic. But
that band was amazing.
Yeah, and very underrated.
I had a food delivery job at this place, Life Cafe on Avenue B in 10th Street with the drummer, Rocky. So me and him were already really good friends. We used to go hang out with Dave. Dave started a studio over in Greenpoint really super early on when it was a shitty neighborhood. So we used to go over there and hang out with him and stuff, whatever. Anyway, go on.
Which Sardi produced record do you still like to this day? I know probably a lot of them, but which one would be your favorite?
Which you mean of like
which record that he produced would be your favorite?
I don't know.
That we come back to making music with your friends, right?
When I think of Dave, sorry, I just think of Bark Market and the fucking incredible sounds of Bark, like Elron or whatever. Holy shit, or Elrod, right? His production on those records is insane. It just sounds so good. Like that's immediately what I think about.
Yeah,
it's just his shit because he really obsessed over things. He really, took a lot of time with those Bark Market records.
Yeah, which also made him at a certain point in time around the millennium probably like the most sought after producer from projects and bands from very, very different spectrums, different side of the spectrum. I mean, like the guy worked with Slayer, then he worked with Johnny Cash, then he worked with Marilyn Manson. So it's just, yeah, probably what you said, like this ear for stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like I said, he had a lot of he had his own studio, like I said, over in Greenpoint, and he just obsessed on things and really knew a lot of fucking recording tricks. A lot of things you can do to have things sound bigger and fuller and clearer. He was really, really amazingly good at doing all that stuff. Still is, I'm sure.
I have 3 more. Favorite country to tour, and the US is not an option because that's France. Like too much.
I think France. Yeah. The food is awesome. People are cool.
Okay, Van, what is the favorite thing for you to eat? Not just a cuisine in general, like French cuisine, but what is your go-to food staple on tour?
Oh my God. I mean, it's so adverse. You're like eating in truck stops and shit, I mean, that's one aspect of touring in France that I really love is you get to the backstage, there's like a baguette and like really good shit, like good vegetables. And, like I could just live off the backstage shit in France. You know what I mean? I could sort of avoid the truck stop, and just kind of, so, I don't know. You eat so crappy on tour. Like, honestly, there's not, I mean, every once in a while, like Italy.
France.
This has happened. Yeah, Italy, France, of course. Of course. And Germany, too, and to a certain extent. A good schnitzel is fucking awesome. Yeah. With the potatoes,
if it's done well.
Really good. And cabbage or whatever, it can be really good. Like, real authentic German food can be good.
Although I have to admit that the best schnitzel I ever had was in Italy.
Oh,
in Venice.
Oh, damn it. That is so funny. But yeah, Italy, like we played in Sardinia, and the promoter took us to the seafood place where they just laid out like a spread of just the most ridiculously fresh, awesome seafood. I was feeling a little Anthony Bourdain-ish at the time. They just spoil the shit out of you and give you really good food. But very unusual. That's an anomaly. It's very unusual.
Yeah, that's what you always hear about. Being on tour is a great experience apart from the food. That's like one of those.
Yeah.
I don't want to say myths, but like so many people say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last thing, favorite club you ever played in?
Wow. I mean, that's.
Yeah. Now you have to go through your like. Which club?
No, I don't. And it was a shithole and dirty as hell and shit. But CBGB's.
Yeah.
It was our local spot. We would steal when we would go on tour early on, we'd take the sound, our friend from who did sound at CB's. We would grab CB's sound guy and take him out on the road with us. And we knew him. We were friends with all those guys. And Hilly was awesome, really cool. Hilly was a good friend. The sound setup they had there was just like these giant PA speakers that were basically sort of side fills diagonally pointed at you, where it was just a fill sound. The whole room was like this big surround sound kind of situation, which meant you could just fucking crank shit up and you could hear everything. It wasn't like singular little monitors. It was just like you had a giant PA pointed at you from the ceiling, basically. So it was just really fun. And I played there so many times. Like we started there, played there when it closed, right before it closed. That was our home place, honestly.
Home away from home?
Home at home. I lived just like 5 blocks away, Like when I was bored during the week, I would just walk over there to hang out and go see, because they would have like 6 to 8 bands in a night, so you got to see a lot of different shit. And I got it free too, which really helped.
So Chris, thanks for all the insight into the time when Occupational Hazard was created, also for all the very, very honest answers about what happened to you in Vienna and about all the other things as well. I think you're playing Vienna again this time, aren't you? So, this time Vienna, please,
Arena is also, I would say it's my super, it's not my home.
It's a very, very cool club, yes.
I have been there a bunch. Yeah. And the guys are really nice. It's great. And the sound is great. It's a fun place to play.
I've seen Neurosis there. That was awesome.
Yeah. I think we played there with Neurosis in '97, I believe.
Well, I'm talking about 2013. But...
Okay.
But I've seen that package closer to home, so yes.
Yeah, I remember. Brutal, man. At one point, we did like 30 shows in a row, and we're all on the same bus. Like 14 people just fucking stacked on each other in these bunks.
Yeah, and probably all smelling like very good perfume.
I mean, Unsane was a relatively clean band compared to them. They piled all their laundry in the front of the bus. It was just, everybody's sweating profusely on a nightly basis. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure I was, smell blind, but, but I'm sure it was horrible. I think I was probably a bit smell blind at that point. So
yeah, but at least the performances were mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we played we did what we could, and they were awesome, and we all hung out. It was great fun tour.
So, Chris, thanks for all the insight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
So much.
No problem. And hope to be. I'm very much hoping that I can catch you at Roadburn before or after the performance. So, thanks for all your time and enjoy the tour.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Chris.
Yep. See ya.